Hello friends and welcome to another edition of Into Fly Fishing. Today, I'm here to talk to you about one of the most diverse freshwater fisheries in the whole country, Alaska's Kenai River. So let's get going. Thanks again for being here, everybody. This is Into Fly Fishing and I'm Nick Jovanovich. I have been a professional guide in Southwest Montana for the last 15 years and have spent 35 years of my life honing my fly fishing craft. So I'm here to share some of my findings and information with you here today. And like I said before, today's subject is the amazing Kenai River in South Central Alaska. But before we get going, if you don't mind just smashing that like button and following us on this channel, we would really appreciate it. It helps a whole lot if you do that for us, more than you know. Anything you could do to help us out is such a big deal. So thank you very much. And now let's get on with the video. So you've probably heard of the Kenai River, especially if you're in the fishing community, but just in case you're unfamiliar, the Kenai River is located on the Kenai Peninsula in South Central Alaska. The Kenai Peninsula is a large peninsula almost due south of Anchorage, Alaska, which is probably where you'd fly into and drive down if you're coming to fish this river. The river itself is an 80-ish mile long river with its headwaters in Kenai Lake at the town of Cooper Landing, where I'm currently at right now. The lake is just upstream of me this way. The river continues down, heading west toward the town of Sterling, and before Sterling, it empties into Skillack Lake. From there, it continues on the other side of the lake out into the town of Kenai, where it hits the Cook Inlet. So if you're coming to fish this river, there are a couple of sections that you want to know about. First of all, the upper section, which refers to the area from Cooper Landing at Kenai Lake at the mouth down to Skillack Lake. The second section is the lower, where the river continues out of Skillack Lake and heads towards the towns of Sterling, Soldotna, and then eventually dumping into the Cook Inlet there at the town of Kenai. Now, even the lower river is divided into two sections, what the locals would call the middle section from Skillack Lake down past Sterling, where the river comes underneath the highway number 1, the Sterling Highway again, and then from there continuing down to Kenai as the lower section of the river. So the locals, as I said, will divide this river into 3 distinct separate sections. This upper section of the river is an unbelievably beautiful place. It's got fir trees and forests all around, and that continues as you head down toward the middle sections at Sterling, and on beyond that, you're getting into some lower land, smaller hills, and even open areas as you continue on toward the town of Kenai at the mouth of the river. Now, what about access to this river? Well, access is actually pretty easy on the Kenai. Either way you go, floating is going to be your best option. And I know I say that a lot. Some people tell me I say that a lot, and it's just the fact of the matter. You can hire a guide. You can rent a drift boat. It's not a terribly difficult river to navigate. Of course, you're just going to want to do some scouting first and know what you're doing and know your put-ins and your takeouts and be comfortable on the oars before you go down the river in a boat. Of course, even if you're here for a stretch and you want to rent a boat yourself, it's great to hire a guide first anyhow. You get a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. You get to see the river firsthand before you go out and just start paddling around. Now, there's also plenty of walk-in access, especially on the upper section of the river. The river follows Alaska Highway 1, that Sterling Highway, for quite a while, almost the entire stretch from Kenai Lake down to Skillack, that upper section. So there's plenty of parking spots and pull-offs and fishing access sites for people who are fishing on foot. Now, in my experience, it gets less and less on the lower section of the river as the river itself is kind of veering away from the roadways. So a little bit more difficult to walk in down there, although not impossible. So what kind of fish can you expect to catch in this river? Well, as I said at the beginning of this video, this place is a virtual cornucopia of fish. It's got so many different species you can target. It's really a great time. This river, first of all, grows some really big native rainbow trout. These things get massive in these big rivers and these big lakes. There's plenty of food and there's plenty of space for them to grow up nice and large. Second of all, you can expect to find steelhead in the Kenai as well. Of course, cousin to the rainbow, but the steelhead travel down to the ocean. They're anadromous, so they come back up. Now, as far as the salmon fishing on this river, it is phenomenal. You can expect to find pinks or humpies, you can expect to find silver salmon or coho salmon, which is what we're here at the end of August and early September to target, or the silver salmon coming upriver. There are a ton of sockeye salmon or red salmon, not to mention those massive kings or Chinook salmon. You'll see those things swimming up the river. They look like absolute massive submarines. They're really, really big and cool fish. We can't forget the Dolly Varden. There's beautiful big dollies in this river as well. And some people will also list Arctic grayling as being present in this river. I haven't personally caught one here. The numbers might not be great, but there are definitely grayling in the waters around. So let's talk about the equipment that you might need to come here. And again, those different salmon species, the time of year that you come here will determine the species that you're here to target. Now, we're beyond the sockeye and the king salmon season, so you're going to see a lot of those spawned out in that bright red color in the river. They're really easy to see, especially with your polarized sunglasses on, but they're all over the place. We're not here to target those. I think I mentioned we're here to target the silvers, who are spawning a little bit later and coming up behind all those salmon that have already spawned. So the species that you're targeting will determine what you're bringing, but this is a list of what I like to bring to be prepared here. So first of all, I'm going to have my 9.5 foot 6-weight rod with a float line. And now I know that sounds a little light, and it is, but it's perfect for targeting Dolly Varden and rainbow trout. Second of all, I bring my 9 foot 8-weight rod. Now that's more of my steelhead rod. I even use that for fishing saltwater, but that's going to help me battle some of those bigger salmon. So if I'm fishing an indicator setup for silvers and might hook some other species of salmon, of course I want a little bit more backbone in that 8-weight to be able to battle those tough fish. I also like to bring my 12.5 or 13-foot spey rod, my 2-hand spey caster, and that's really fun for swinging flies. This time of year I bring my 7-weight. Again, we're going for those medium-sized salmon. You might get some steelhead as well, and that seems to do really well. I've got a variety of tips for that, including float, intermediate sink, and full sink for swinging flies on that spey rod. Now, if you're targeting bigger salmon, if you're here earlier in the year, of course, check the regulations so that you know what you can keep and what you can even target. But if you're here earlier and you're getting after those big salmon like the kings, you're going to want a pretty beefy rod. That time of year, the earlier in the year, I like to bring a bigger spey rod, like a 9-weight 13-foot spey rod. And I also like to bring a bigger switch rod, like an 8 or 9-weight switch rod if I'm indicator fishing for those big salmon. So what kind of patterns do you want to bring when you come fish the Kenai River? Well, the list isn't long, and some people are going to take some things off of my list and add their own favorites, but this is what works for me. So when I'm fishing streamers to the salmon or steelhead or trout, what I like to bring is usually something like a hobo spey. The Dirk Wiggler is one of my personal favorites as well. A Dolly Llama, which I think we can consider almost a classic streamer at this point, works phenomenally well on this river. And something called the Sleech is also one of my personal favorites. And now the colors that you're looking for on those are usually like a blue and black, a pink and black, a white or peach, like a flesh-colored, something resembling a flesh fly. But those 4 streamers in various colors usually cover everything that I want to target when I'm up here on the Kenai River. Now, of course, you're going to want to bring some egg patterns as well. Now, not everybody likes to fish egg patterns, but let me be abundantly clear. Eggs on this river are one of the main food sources for all fish, all the salmon and all the trout. So in essence, you are matching the hatch. Now, I've been out here. I've seen some big drakes flying around, even seen some very nice hatches, but there are no fish feeding on the surface, and there's nothing that I've ever caught on this river with standard or traditional flies. Now, that's not saying it won't happen all the time, but there are just so many eggs in this river. It's such a high protein diet. That's like you going to a buffet and picking like a slice of bologna over steak and lobster, right? What are you going to do? You're going to eat the good stuff. So your egg patterns in a 6mm to a 12mm or so are going to be absolutely necessary. And now you can use soft eggs like yarns or chenilles, or you can just use your standard beads, your typical pinks or creamy pinks, and your oranges or creamy oranges. Sometimes chartreuse seems to work, but a little bit more natural color seems better. I like to vary up between bright variants if the eggs have been laid are fresh, or if they've been in the water a while, they get kind of a duller, creamy color. So that's what you kind of have to change to if your bright colors aren't working. But that's really all you need. So small list of flies for a whole bunch of fish and a whole bunch of different species. And here are some tips you're going to want to know before you come out here to fish the Kenai River. Number one, bring bear spray and be bear aware. You are in a lot of civilization in a lot of this river. There are towns along the way. There's going to be a lot of other boats and other fishermen, but there are still bears around. They're on the water. They live here. And if you're walking the river, you just want to be aware and you want to be ready, because although we didn't see a bear this time, we have seen bears. We did see fresh bear scat. There were paw prints all over in the mud. They're here and you want to be aware. And the lower you are on the river, if you're on that middle or lower section, there's even more bears down there. Always check the regulations before you get here, and when you get here, things can change. Wildlife management is always trying to be on top of things. They're going to monitor the returns to the river of all the different species of salmon, okay? So sometimes, like this year, they reduced the limit of silver salmon that we can keep, which is, like I said, what we're after right now. Other salmon are completely closed, like king salmon. You can't even try to fish for king salmon at this time. So there's certain periods you can fish for certain salmon. They can shrink your daily limits when they feel it's necessary. So just stay on top of those regulations before you come and as you're here. Also in the area, there's lots of activity up until Labor Day. After Labor Day, which we're here now a few days after Labor Day, things really quiet down. So be prepared for that. Stores will close down. You won't have as many services. So bring in lots of food from like Costco and the grocery stores up the road there at Anchorage really helps out. Just be prepared. We couldn't even get into some of the shops to get some more supplies for fishing. So just being prepared for that really helps. And if you want to bring some fish home, awesome. There's plenty of beautifully fresh and tasty salmon in this river. We like to buy a cheap cooler from Walmart and bring it down here. We'll fillet everything out. My brothers are actually out on the sound right now, or out in the inlet fishing halibut to bring home as well. So what we're going to do is just pack that cooler and duct tape it shut, and we'll be able to check that on the airline. It's much cheaper to check an extra bag, even if you have to pay that extra baggage fee, than to try to ship it home to you. So that's another trick that we've learned. We just buy a cheap cooler, fill it up, freeze everything while we're here, and wrap it up real tight with tape and check it on the airplane. You're also going to want to be prepared for all 4 seasons anytime you're here. Now, I know we're just after the true summer season. Really, it's fall here in Alaska at this point, but we've experienced everything from t-shirt weather to driving rain. It's been warm and cold. It's going to be everything in between. So just be prepared. It's much easier than getting stuck out here in a pair of shorts and then having the temperature drop, the storm comes in on you, and you just have a miserable freezing day. Of course, hypothermia is easily set in a setting like this as well. So just come prepared. Hire a guide. If you've never been out here, you don't know the area, there's nothing better than hiring a guide for a day, 2 days, 3 days, even the whole time you're out here if you want an easier experience for yourself. These guides know what they're doing. There are times when we're fishing out here, we can't find the right color streamer or the right color bead, and we think we've used all of them. And these guides have their tricks and their own beads that they make and their own streamers that they make to catch fish when it's tough for us. So at least learn the river with a guide before you get out there, and consider hiring one for multiple days or the whole time you're out here. It's worth its weight in gold. And the last tip is, like I said before, to get here, you're just going to fly into Anchorage. It's really easy. There's tons of flights. There's plenty of Airbnbs down here. You can rent a car at the airport. We did Turo and brought some trucks down here. Very simple. There's plenty of fishing lodges and hotels down here to stay in as well. It's really not that remote of an area. You're not going to worry about accommodations. So everything's really easy to plan in that way. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that informational segment on the Kenai River. As you can see, it is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful river. This turquoise color from the glacial sediment just adds to the mystique of this place. There's so many different massive fish that you can target in this river. It should be on your list. If you haven't been here, get it on the list and get up here. It's really something you got to experience. And one more time, if you don't mind, please like this video. Please follow us on this channel. We really appreciate it. It helps big time. I'm Nick Jovanovich, and this is Into Fly Fishing. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you out here again later. Take care.